Greetings, fellow Watford fans. I hope you are well on this Friday. Happy Friday to you all. I'm Omar Moore, and it is time for the Orns Friday Focus, and that means it's time for Watford versus Southampton analysis. Pre-match, of course, as we get ready for the game in the Premier League at the Vic. That's right, the Hornets are back at the Vic tomorrow to take on the Saints, a team that they have not beaten in the Premier League at the Vic in the last two occasions that they have been in the Premier League. If you look back to the games that they have played at home against Southampton, they have not won, not in season 2015 or 16, not in any of the seasons that they enjoyed the 4 or 5 season long run in the Premier League from 2015 through to 2020. Not once did Watford defeat Southampton at the Vic. So now, back in the Premier League after a season out, here is a great opportunity for another first for the new head coach, Claudio Ranieri. This would be a good way to continue the firsts that Watford have had. Of course, we're still basking in the glow of the victory at Goodison Park over Everton, and a lot of firsts were created in that particular game. Now, let's see if that can continue in tomorrow's game against the Saints, who have only won once this season in the Premier League, to the best of my recollection. And they are, of course, going to look to dull the momentum of Watford, who could get their second consecutive win for the first time in this Premier League season, should they beat the Saints tomorrow at the Vic. Watford will have back in the fold Danny Rose, who missed out with a knock suffered during training. I think apparently a knock on his calf. He is past fit and will be available to play this game. I expect that Claudio Ranieri will return him to his starting place. And I do think a game like this needs a Danny Rose in the defensive area in left back. Now, I will say this, as you know well, Adam Messina had a pretty darn good game last weekend at Everton, but I do think that Danny Rose is going to keep his, going to get his place back. I think this is the kind of game where Danny Rose experience is called for. Southampton are a tricky outfit. And even though they have got off to a struggling start, they are a team that can make things difficult and they are tricky to play against. They do have some new players in their outfit, though. They've lost one big player in their defense. Westergaard, I guess his name is, or Westerveld, I forget which. He has now moved on, I think, to Leicester City, and he is no longer with Southampton. That is a massive defender missed for them, and they have struggled without him, but they still do have some players who can cause problems for Watford. Now, Watford, of course, have a lot of confidence right now coming off that 5-2 victory. It was an explosive game at Goodison Park following being down by 2 goals to 1 as late as the 77th minute. And I think Watford could kick on here tomorrow. They looked as if that game had gone on another 5 or 10 minutes, Watford could have scored another 2 or 3 goals. They were in that kind of mood at Goodison Park last week. Now, of course, momentum is only as good as your next game. And of course, if Watford can get off to a good start, and I think there's no reason why they shouldn't in the game against the Saints, I think it could be another repeat, a repeat of what we saw at Goodison. Not that they'd have to be trailing in the game, but I think Watford could go on and establish themselves here if they win this game. I think that they are going to play well. I think they're going to perform well. And I think that they could possibly have a clean sheet in the offing here as well against Southampton. That's something that Watford have not done so far this season. And I think it would be good for the whole team if they could get a clean sheet. And what better place to get one than at the Vic? And also against a team like Southampton, who have been held scoreless in several games thus far this season. And there's no reason, I think, why Watford can't at least try to make it happen this time around. What are your bets on a clean sheet tomorrow at the Vic? Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Watford are going to keep a clean sheet tomorrow. Of course, if I'm wrong, I will be wrong, and I will own up to that. But I do think that Watford will keep a clean sheet tomorrow. The question is, will Watford score? And I think they will as well, which means I'm going for a Watford victory tomorrow against the Saints. Look for the lineup to be fairly close to what it was Kiko Femenia will not be in the starting lineup, nor will Sierralta, who's still recovering from his hamstring. Cabaselli is a long term, a bit more of a long term situation. And then obviously, very long term situation is Peter Etebo, who is not expected back until sometime, I think, in March, perhaps, or even later than that, as he continues to go on the long road back from his injury in his quadricep a few weeks ago against Newcastle. Now, as for the goalkeeper situation, I have gotten the ear of a number of fans, Watford fans, and got them really in the mindset of thinking that Backman should be starting. I think that Backman should be starting too, but I expect and suspect that Claudio Ranieri will keep Ben Foster in between the sticks at the Vic on Saturday. Now, look, I think that Backman is a much more agile goalkeeper. I think his decision making has been a lot better this season, despite the one mistake he made at Tottenham. That was exactly, would you believe it? That was exactly 2 months ago today. I think, yes, exactly 2 months ago today, that game against Spurs. It's amazing how the time flies, isn't it? As we get toward October, coming to an end, and we get toward the beginning of November, Halloween, of course, around the corner as well. Well, we'll hope that tomorrow Watford avoid any kind of pre-Halloween jitters. The important thing is to continue the momentum from last week, to stay positive, to keep going forward, and that's where Jeremy Ngake comes in as right back, and to keep pressing up the pitch. One thing that you did notice in the game against Everton, especially in the second half, was a lot more pressing from Watford. Ranieri has them pressing a whole lot more. Unlike his predecessor, Watford are pressing a lot more in the games now, particularly the game against Everton. They did it a little bit against Liverpool, but not very much. But in this game against Everton, my goodness me, they were very much about pressing. And I think the key for Watford is to be able to hold on to the ball a bit longer against the Southampton side, who will go forward with Theo Walcott and this new striker who really has lit the world up for Southampton the last week or two, the last game or two. I think that is important for Watford if they want to win this game, is that they are going to have to enjoy longer spells of possession and tempo control. And they're also going to have to be able to have ball retention, keep the ball for longer than 10 seconds. If you can do that in this game tomorrow, you will, I think, have a measure of success. Keep the ball for longer periods of time and make sure that your passing is better. One thing that Watford really haven't done for the most part this season, even to an extent in some of the games that they have won, is to pass the ball a lot quicker and a lot more accurately. I want to see more of that tomorrow. I expect that we shall see more of that tomorrow at the Vic. Some quicker passing, some better movement. I think the movement in the second half of the game against Everton was exceptional. I expect to see more of that continuing on in this game tomorrow against the Saints. Josh King, of course, red hot right now. He'll be looking to add to his goal tally. Saul will be starting. It'll be interesting to see how Saul reacts now to having been substituted out of the Everton game around the 65th minute or so, whenever it was last week. It will be very interesting to see how Saul reacts. I think you're going to have a very, very engaged Ismail Assar coming up tomorrow. And I also suspect that you're going to have a lot of activity from Cucho Hernandez. Remember, Emmanuel Dennis will not be playing this game tomorrow. He has a accumulated suspension of yellow cards, accumulation of yellow cards, which means that he will miss the game tomorrow. But I do think that there are going to be some adequate replacements for him. I would like to see what Ashley Fletcher can do. It all depends upon the nature of this game. If Watford are up in a comfortable way, I mean, Ashley Fletcher, you may see him. If Watford are down, I expect you'd probably see Ashley Fletcher as well. But the question becomes, when does Ashley Fletcher get utilized? To the best of my knowledge, he is not injured. So I don't know what the story is now. There's no cup competition to think about until January with the FA Cup. So we shall see how things shake out, what that lineup is going to look like tomorrow when it is unveiled. an hour before game time. My goodness me, so much in this game will be very intriguing. Southampton have not lost at Vicarage Road, as I said, in the last 4+ seasons, maybe 5 seasons that Watford have been in the Premier League. And we are looking to put that to an end and finally get a home win over Southampton. We won on the road against Southampton, but we've not won at Vicarage Road against Southampton in the last few years now. So let's turn that around tomorrow, shall we?